Dear Charlie Bucket, I see you have found one of the 5 golden tickets from the Wonka bar. Aren't you lucky? It's time to visit the magnificent and one-of-a-kind Willy Wonka factory. And to enter this marvelous place, let's settle ourselves into a nice and comfortable position. And once you have settled in, prepare to close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths to relax your body and your mind. So taking a nice, long, deep breath in through the nose, and a long, slow breath out through the mouth. Breathing in, and breathing out. And one more time, breathing in, and breathing out. You must be feeling so much more relaxed now, ready to go on a magical adventure. Accompanied by Grandpa Joe, you arrive at the gates of the Willy Wonka chocolate factory. There are 4 more children with their adults waiting impatiently for the gates to open any time now. You look around you and observe who else is there with you. You see Violet Beauregard and notice that she is still chewing her record-breaking gum. You see Augustus Gloop, who is eating a chocolate bar, a sight that is no surprise. You see Mike Tivy, who looks unimpressed and annoyed. And you see Veruca Salt, who seems to be whining to her father, "Daddy, make the time go faster." And as the clock strikes 10, the great iron gates swing open. Grandpa Joe looks down at you and gives you a warm smile. Everyone becomes quiet and you finally see Mr. Wonka emerge. Mr. Wonka is a small man with pale skin and a twinkle in his eye. He is dressed in a plum jacket and green pants with a tall black hat and gray gloves. He appears to be energetic and excited about our arrival. "Greetings, my dear guests. Welcome to the factory." Mr. Wonka greets us with a smile. "My name is Willy Wonka. Let's get a move on, kids. Come quickly, far too much to see." Mr. Wonka urges us all to come along as we enter the chocolate factory. The double doors lead into a hexagon-shaped entrance. You are all encouraged to hang your hats and your coats on the golden hand-shaped coat hangers, and as you do, you become startled when the golden hands grab tightly onto the clothes. Mr. Wonka leads us down a hallway, hustling us to move along at a swift pace. The temperature inside is warm and toasty, and as you continue to follow Mr. Wonka as he twists and turns down the seemingly endless hallway, you will arrive in front of a small metal door that leads to the chocolate room. Now, my dear children, do not lose your heads and do not get overexcited. Just keep very calm, Mr. Wonka says as he opens the door to the chocolate room. And as you enter, you gasp at the beauty of it. The whole room is made entirely out of chocolate. It is so enchanting. Mr. Wonka begins to lead you over a little bridge, and as you look below, you see that the river is chocolate. Every drop of the river is hot, melted chocolate of the finest quality, and you see a waterfall that churns up the chocolate, making it light and frothy. And as Mr. Wonka continues to guide you through the beautiful chocolate room, he points out the pipes that suck up the chocolate and carry it away, thousands of gallons an hour. And to your left, you see a meadow that is entirely edible. "Please try a blade of grass, please do," Mr. Wonka says, smiling. You and Grandpa Joe try a piece of the grass and allow the chocolate to melt in your mouth. It is the tastiest piece of chocolate you have ever tasted. And all of a sudden, Veruca screams in reaction to seeing little people on the other side of the river. The little people look at you across the river and then begin to laugh hysterically. Mr. Wonka introduces the Oompa Loompas, who are great workers at the factory. They love to sing and dance, but they are also mischievous, always making jokes. And as you observe the Oompa Loompas in their playful nature, you hear Mr. Gloop shriek out of fear as he yells for Augustus to stop drinking from the chocolate river. Mr. Wonka pleads for him to stop, as the chocolate river must remain unsullied by human hands. It does not take long for Augustus to accidentally fall into the river and be sucked up by the great pipes like a rocket, carrying him away directly to the fudge room. Mr. Wonka snaps his fingers at one of the Oompa Loompas and demands it escort Mr. and Mrs. Gloop to the fudge room. The Oompa Loompas laugh hysterically in response to the instructions, while Augustus's parents show a horrified expression on their faces. As the Gloops exit, the other Oompa Loompas on the far side of the river begin to dance, play their instruments, and sing a song about Augustus's greed. Mr. Wonka leads everyone over to the river, where he waited for a moment for a beautiful boat to arrive, rowed by 100 Oompa Loompas, and as all the children, mothers, and fathers board the boat, the Oompa Loompas begin rowing downstream the Chocolate River. The Oompa Loompas stop the boat in front of a red door called the Inventing Room. Mr. Wonka leans over to unlock it, stating that this room is the most important room in the factory. All the chocolate makers would give anything to get inside. And as you all enter the Inventing Room, you take a good look around you. Cauldrons are bubbling, there is steam and pipes everywhere, and endless delicious smells of chocolate. Mr. Wonka grows more and more excited as he continues his tour, running from one pot to another. He is frantically turning dials, dipping and tasting, and watching a machine drop green balls out one at a time. "These green balls are a new invention of mine," Mr. Wonka explains. "They are everlasting gobstoppers that can be sucked indefinitely and never grow smaller." Violet thinks this seems just like chewing gum, but Mr. Wonka assures her that if she were to bite one, it would break her jaw. And so Mr. Wonka leads the group over to a gum inventing machine. This machine has countless glass tubes spilling into a large tub, and when Mr. Wonka presses the buttons, the machine begins to shake and steam. The glass tubes shoot a stream of various colors into the tub, and when the tub gets filled, Mr. Wonka presses another button, and the tub begins to mix all the liquids, changing colors continually, and finally settling on the color blue. Suddenly, the machine stops whirring and begins to suck the liquid up back into its belly. And just a few moments later, you see a little drawer pop out of the machine, and inside is a small, flat object that looks just like cardboard. "Here we are, children. This is the most amazing gum ever created," Mr. Wonka yells out of excitement. "It is an entire 3-course meal in one piece of gum. Can you believe it?" Mr. Wonka further explains how the piece of gum is a mixture of tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie. He most certainly believes that this new gum will change people's lives forever. Violet takes her gum out of her mouth and asks Mr. Wonka to try it. Mr. Wonka warns Violet that the gum has not been perfected, but before he can stop her, Violet seizes the gum and throws it right into her mouth. Violet instantly tastes all the wonderful flavors, and the more she chews, you notice that her nose begins to change color. Slowly, Violet begins to turn purple, until her entire body is the color of blueberry juice. She begins to feel ill, and her body continues to expand. She is quite indeed turning into a blueberry. Mr. Wonka snaps his fingers at the Oompa Loompas and instructs them to roll Violet to the juicing room, where they will squeeze the juice out of her and fix her. Mr. Wonka assures you all that Violet will be just fine as you all make your way back into the corridor. And as you all continue to enjoy this marvelous place, you pass many more enchanting rooms. And as you walk, you notice a wallpaper that is covered with fruits. You see oranges, pineapples, plums, bananas, strawberries, and snozberries. If you like one of the fruits on the wallpaper, it will taste exactly like it. You pass the fizzy lifting drink room, where there is a red and gray machine that makes fizzy lifting drinks. This drink allows the drinker to float, and the only way to stop the floating, you must burp. You pass the Wonkamobile track that has a car with carbonation as petrol. You pass the Spotty Powder room that produces spotty powder, which allows anyone who eats it to feign illness to get off from school or work. You even pass the Fear Tunnel, in which you can see your worst fears. And now you all arrive before a room called the Nut Room. Mr. Wonka tells everyone to look inside but not to enter. And through the window you can see hundreds of squirrels sitting on stools around a large table, furiously shelling walnuts. While everyone watches the squirrels in action, Veruca tells her mother that she wants one. Her mother tells her that she cannot have one because they all belong to Mr. Wonka. Veruca continues to demand of a squirrel until she cannot take it anymore and rushes into the room. And as she reaches to grab one, all of the squirrels suddenly pounce on Veruca and knock on her head. They begin to drag her toward the garbage chute where she tumbles down and out of sight. Mrs. Salt demands to know where her daughter has gone, and Mr. Wonka assures her that she will probably be just fine. And as you all move on to the next room, Mike TV complains he is tired and would like to watch some television instead. Mr. Wonka leads the rest of you into the Wonkavator, with thousands of buttons on each wall and the ceiling. You notice that each button is labeled with a room name. Mr. Wonka explains that the elevator can travel in any direction, and it is entirely made of glass to allow for full viewing. "Is there a television room?" Mike asks eagerly. Mr. Wonka points his finger to the television room, and Mike pushes it impatiently. The elevator suddenly takes off sideways, knowing everyone except Mr. Wonka. And as you finally arrive at your next destination, Mr. Wonka warns you to be careful. As you exit the elevator, you step into a blindingly white room. Mr. Wonka hands out dark glasses and asks you to wear them at all times to protect your eyes. And as you look around the room, you notice that it is completely white and very long. And you see a camera that is surrounded by Oompa Loompas wearing spacesuits to protect themselves from the rays. There's a television set on the other side of the camera. Mr. Wonka explains that this room is for testing television chocolate. He says that television is bad, but in small doses it can be okay. He notes that children always want an endless amount of it. And so Mr. Wonka imagines spreading chocolate into every home in the same manner that television is spread. Mike seems to think that that is impossible, so Mr. Wonka presents a demonstration. Suddenly you see some Oompa Loompas carry in a chocolate bar the size of a bed. Mr. Wonka explains that the chocolate has to be very big because, as with real television, the things shrink in size to fit the screen. Mr. Wonka calls for action and the chocolate bar disappears, appearing on the television screen. "Go on, children, try to take the chocolate and have a bite," Mr. Wonka says. You see, Grandpa Joe is completely astounded as Mr. Wonka explains he can use the television to advertise his chocolate directly into people's homes and hands. But as you look to your side, you see Mike refuse to take the chocolate. He pesters Mr. Wonka about the possibility of sending people by television as he begins to race toward the camera. You all shout for Mike to stop, but it is too late. Mike jumps in front of the lens and disappears in a blinding flash. Suddenly, you see the screen begin to flicker, and slowly Mike becomes clear, waving to everyone. He has shrunk to 1 inch tall. Mr. Wonka sends the TVs away with the Oompa Loompas, telling them that everything will be okay. Now, as you and Grandpa Joe are the only ones left, Mr. Wonka pauses and reacts with pure excitement. "Congratulations, Charlie," Mr. Wonka says. As you return to the elevator, you see Mr. Wonka reach for a button that says up and out. You wonder where you may be headed. You are feeling very excited. And as you begin to feel the elevator go all the way up, it explodes through the roof of the factory and straight up into the sky. Suddenly, Mr. Wonka presses a button that makes the elevator stop midair. You take a moment to look down at the town below, feeling as though you were standing on air. And now, as the elevator descends back down, Mr. Wonka tells you how much he loves his chocolate factory, and that he would like it to belong to you. You are absolutely thrilled to hear this news, and cannot wait to tell it to your family back home. You feel excited and joyful to live in the most wonderful place in the world. And as you come back home, everybody is so happy to find out that you will live at Mr. Wonka's chocolate factory. Your mother and father ask if there will be food at your destination, and you laugh in response, telling them to wait and see.